Welcome to the Fediverse podcast, a show about the challenges of building a new internet. I am Paige from Fediverse, your host, and with me today, Victor.
Victor from Fediverse.
Victor also from Fediverse. Two Fediverse people on the Fediverse podcast. It's a Fediverse packed house. We've got all the hosts. We're also joined today by the voice of Jeremy Flatt.
The ghost of Jeremy Flatt?
Jeremy's been very busy, Victor, and he was on the radio, the morning show in Yellowknife, and I thought it might make a kind of fun episode to listen and comment on the job that layman Jeremy Flatt does of explaining the Fediverse to layman's on the radio.
I mean, it's a job I can't even do myself, so...
Yeah, that's right. We had our own recently with Radio Canada, right?
Oh, yeah, my awful quote, extremely awful quote. That wasn't, I think that was a misquote. I hope so.
Our own little experience with Radio Canada, that came from Jeremy. So Jeremy put together this event to explain the Fediverse in Yellowknife. It's really, really good idea, good way to kind of bring people on board. And a journalist from CBC, Radio Canada, this is the state broadcaster in Canada, was there, and he was really interested and interviewed Jeremy, and then called me up and asked me for details, and I put him in touch with Victor because he was doing a French language post. And through that, the newsroom there got wind of the Fediverse and brought Jeremy in to talk on the morning show.
Oh, so he talked on the CBC morning show.
Yes.
That's really cool. Okay, that's if you're in Yellowknife, that's like the top radio show you could be on.
You know what? Like, they're voracious news consumers in Yellowknife. It's a very media savvy, like politically savvy environment because it's a capital and everyone works for the government. So actually, yeah, not far off, you know. Anyway, without further ado, let's roll the tape.
Many of us are on social media. There are quite a few options out there to use. But to use them means you're giving up some control of your own data to a corporation, and in return, getting ads, bots, and algorithms shaping your experience, whether you like it or not. One Yellowknife man is working to create a localized social media community for Northerners without all the extras. Jeremy Flatt joins us in studio to talk about NWT.social and the Fediverse. Jeremy, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thanks for coming in this early in the morning. I have many questions. I took a little dive into the Fediverse last night, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure I totally understand it right now. So can you start off by explaining what NWT.social is and what the Fediverse is?
Oh boy, at 7 in the morning. I'll give it a shot. I should preface all of this by saying I'm not a particularly techie person, and I also can't really claim to have created anything necessarily. I've more sort of bought something and subscribed to something. So your question was what is NWT.social and what is the Fediverse? So let's start with the tricky one. The Fediverse is you can kind of tell from the name, like it's a contraction or portmanteau of federated universe. So the idea is that instead of having one site like a Facebook or X or whatever it's called now, where you go and you create an account and it sets you up on their site, there's lots and lots and lots of different sites all around, stored on different parts of the internet, right? And we call those instances. And I know there are going to be techie friends of mine who'll be listening to this and be like, "That's not what an instance is."
He's pretty good so far.
Are you p***ing, Victor?
No, I'm not. p***ing. And I know, like this is like he did the classic sigh when somebody asks you, "Can you explain what the Fediverse is?" It's just like it's so hard. Like I think this is like the Fediverse's biggest issue is how do you explain to someone what it is?
You know that thing of being like, I'm going to tell this person, and I just know they're not going to get it. Even though they're really, really smart and actually quite technologically literate, just being like a first pass explanation, they're going to get some stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I can't dump string theory onto this person. You're almost screwed if you don't have a piece of paper and a pen. If you're doing it vocally, it's like,
Club.social had the right idea. They just like, we're going to use this, but we're not going to tell anybody because it's just going to confuse them.
Okay, let's roll on.
I don't really know much about this stuff. I know the important parts.
We're keeping it simple for the morning audience.
Yes, no, exactly. Well, and for myself too. So you have lots of different sites instead of one large one. And what's important is that the people who have their accounts saved on those sites, who have their accounts stored on those sites, they usually own the server that those accounts are stored on. So the physical infrastructure where that stuff is saved. Just because you have your information on a site, on one particular site, it doesn't mean you're limited to that site. You can use a platform or an app to talk to people who have their stuff saved on other sites. So it's sort of that's what makes it a federation, in the sense you have these individually saved spaces, but they can communicate with each other using shared technology. And that's what Mastodon is. So Mastodon, it behaves in many ways like a social media site, like Twitter or X, whatever it's called now. But it's actually just the tool that you use to communicate between different local and locally controlled spaces. And that's what nwt.social is. nwt.social is just a server. So I paid, $30 on porkbun.com for a domain.
Victor, I see you nodding furiously at Porkbun.
Porkbun is like my domain register of choice, and it took me a long time to convince Paige to start using it. Because every single time Paige would look up a domain, he was like, "Oh, that's a good price. That's like $45 for this domain." And I was like, "Dude, that's way too expensive. What the fuck?" And then I would go on Porkbun, and it's like $10.
The thing is, Victor, I wasn't buying it. I'm just looking it up.
Well, it's just a domain name, because that's the thing, though. With domain registers, is you don't get anything more. It's just to own the name.
No, you just want to have them, like for me, just want to have them all in the same place. So eventually, like, I didn't buy any more domains at expensive prices. I just was using a domain search that I knew had like everything under the sun in it. And mostly to check whether things are available or not. And then when my domains came up for renewal, I moved over to Porkbun on Victor's recommendation.
I should get some referral bonuses from that, but...
Anyway.
So I paid, $30 on porkbun.com for a domain, and I have a friend who sets up servers for Fediverse accounts, and I think I pay like $7 a month or something for my hosting, which is all in Canada, by the way. It's all on Canadian servers.
All Canadian.
Good friend. Two friends, I guess.
And I have a Mastodon account on there, and that's essentially it. And I can invite people onto my server, and we can have our own little homepage, but we can also each individually follow other people all over the rest of the Fediverse, using our own server as a home.
I think I'm picturing what you're saying here. I saw it described two other ways yesterday. One is being kind of like email, like it doesn't matter who hosts your email, I can communicate with anybody else, right? So if I'm on TikTok, I can only communicate with people on TikTok. If I'm in NWT Social, I can communicate with people on other sites that work inside that universe.
Yes, absolutely. And within the Fediverse, it's not just Mastodon, right? There's all kinds of different apps that are designed to work within this ecosystem, and they all rely on a common communication protocol. And it's really exciting, because it is the fact that when you're using Twitter, you can only talk to other people on Twitter or whatever, that's all by design within these systems, right? The business model of like corporate social media is to kind of fence people into a particular technology. So they have to stay in that space to keep using that technology, and they stay there because everybody's there. And I think what has happened, or what's made me interested in the Fediverse, is that what we've seen over the last kind of 2 decades is this gradual... We started out thinking of social media as kind of like a public space, right? Like the town square or whatever. I feel like that was the term that was thrown around. But what's actually happened is that we've ceded an enormous amount of control over these public spaces to private interests. And it doesn't really matter to me where that private interest politics lie. It seems pretty obvious that they will sort of follow the money in terms of their own priorities. It wasn't long ago that we were hearing so much from sort of the American right about how social media was pushing Hollywood woke values on the rest of the world. And now, that's done a kind of a 180. The point is that we should be maintaining our own control over our own spaces where we have we have these important interactions and where our data is saved, and that's what these servers do, and that's what we want to do with nwt.social, is to have a non-profit take over the ownership of the server and the domain, and to manage memberships, and then people are elected to the board of the non-profit just in the same way they are with any other non-profit in town, and they set the rules for how content's moderated on the server, how behavioral standards are enforced, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so what he's describing reminds me a lot of something else.
Club?
No, co-social.
Co-social. I mean, he said everything quite eloquently. How would you say?
Oh, the irony. Eloquently, yes.
Eloquently? That's a word I can't say. But yeah, you should be like the spokesperson for the Fediverse.
Yeah, Jeremy is kind of funny because he always just knocks it out of the park when he does media interviews.
Maybe it's the British accent.
It is a little bit of it. And he's good at doing impersonations, so he can do all the British accents, even the very fancy ones. So he's describing how a lot of the time these social media co-ops get started. Like for a while, one person kind of swipes their credit card and just kind of takes on that expense, and then you get more people involved, and then at some point you go and establish a non-profit and set up membership fees and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, he's very much walking a path that other people have walked. So it's a model that I hope to see more of on the Fediverse, and there's already a lot of it, but it's kind of, I think the ideal future for the Fediverse is one where it's like, look, you pay a modest fee, and for that we escape this horrible system that seems to come with us avoiding paying money by instead letting advertising and algorithms drive what we view.
There are multiple ways you could start an instance. I'm sure a lot of people would make instances where users don't even need to pay. It's just to get the data locally. You can have advertising deal with like local businesses, right? And that's how you monetize your instance. But you just got to stop giving money to the big American tech giants.
It's totally conceivable that like simple banner ads and, for a local fish and chip shop, on an instance would be enough to cover your costs when merged with like membership fees. Basically like the way that newspapers used to work, There were subscribers, and that was a little bit of the puzzle, and there were classified ads.
The local ads like this are good. Like, people don't mind them. They're not intrusive. Like, if you see the guy doing lawnmower repair, that's useful to you. It's not like, please buy my new product that you don't even need. It's like, no, that's not like an actual reason to like advertise something.
Or you can have like, municipal elections are coming up. Have you registered to vote? Stuff that's actually like totally a public service. And you can set up a server and be like, our policy is the ads are, we have a white list of the things that can place ads, and that's, how this is going to work. And if you pay $3 a month, you don't have to see the ads at all. All right. Let's keep going.
We've talked about what it is and it's how it's different. It's different that it's owned, by by a big corporation. You are more in control of your data. If someone were to sign up for nwt.social today, what would they see?
Not a whole lot, because there's only sort of 5 or 6 of us on there right now. I could certainly.
Don't say that. What if I go? I'm logged into nwt.social. What am I going to see? No, I'm seeing Jeremy. A lot of Jeremy.
It's Jeremy mostly, and another person.
But that's fine. That's actually fun. Like they probably feel like camaraderie.
I mean, this is honestly the way that I use the Fediverse. Is it's almost like the level beyond a group chat. Any time that I want to say something to like Reese or Jeremy or you or my brother or whatever, that I'm like, oh, I would find this kind of funny to bring up at a party.
Yeah.
Where amongst friends, where like other people would get a kick out of this conversation. I just throw it up on Mastodon.
It's broadcasting a little bit of your personality.
Kind of like an invitation to join in. Like, you know me, as you've said many times, I like to talk. You like to listen. At a party, I'll be talking to people and I'll be like, what do you think? Like you want to, you involve people in the conversation and you make it about like more than just two people. So I use Mastodon a lot like that, and almost always I'm just like talking to like people that I know.
It's inviting conversation.
Jeremy's on Mastodon. Most of his like, I don't know, like half of them are like adding me or my brother or you. He says he's created a hashtag thanks page.
He made
I should follow that one.
That's a good hashtag.
The point is kind of, I do want people to come and check out nwt.social, but the real thing that I want to get across is that this is an incredibly easy thing to do. If you want to set up a dedicated social media space for your community, for your interest group, like you're a hobby group, and you want to chat online with 20 other people who are really interested in that particular niche hobby. If you speak a niche, or if you're part of a small linguistic group, you might want to set up a server purely for using that language on your social media. And it's a very easy thing to do. And that's part of what we want to help with as an organization, nwt.social, is to just kind of, make these things available and easy and accessible to people, because I think they're very important democratic tools. Right. And that's the entry point for me. That's why I'm interested in this stuff. I've come on the radio before to speak about proportional representation and electoral reform. And I think that it's very, very important in these times to make sure we have a good distribution of power in society and in government, and proportional systems are very good at achieving that in the government context. But what we need is also a distribution of power within the sort of social media and communications world too. And that's where the Fediverse is a fantastic tool.
So there you go, Victor. You can tell Jeremy's my friend. Jobs a pro rep. But I thought it was interesting that point there about the linguistic groups. The Northwest Territories has like 9 official languages. And there's a lot of languages up there that are spoken by like 1,000 people max. Like languages that are seriously at risk of dying out. And there's a lot of work being done to keep them alive. And so it's a perfect example of where a school board in one of these communities could set up a closed server that only federates with the other social media services that use that language, and create a social media internet that helps people retain their language.
Why do you think that this is the kind of social media experience that Northerners need right now?
The algorithm part of social media is the troubling part for me, where because these platforms are driven by engagement and getting people essentially addicted to what the experience of being on these sites, they drive engagement at any cost, right? And what they tend to do is look at what gets the most reaction from people and make sure that more of that content is pumped to that person over and over. And often this means sending you stuff that you'll agree with, so creating that sort of echo chamber effect. But often it means sending you stuff that will make you really, really angry. And what we see is, people on one side of the political spectrum being shown content that represents the most extreme or egregious point of view on the other side of the political spectrum, and then having this presented to them in a way that makes it seem like this is emblematic of how everybody on the other side of the political spectrum feels. So it's this sort of mutual caricaturing effect where people are just pushed further and further apart from each other by this sense that, well, everyone who doesn't share my particular point of view on this thing is a lunatic. And that is something that I think it's really important for everybody to be able to get away from that. I think in the North, I don't really know. I think we're just as vulnerable to that as everybody else. That's my main reason. But I think in the North, there's specific advantages to something like the Fediverse. Like I said, being able to make your own community social media. I think we also saw when the Facebook ban on Canadian news came in, a lot of people relied on Facebook for their connection to local news sources, and then suddenly that had to be, we were sort of scrambling to find an alternative for that. Our city government still uses X. They put information news out on X. If you don't have an X account, you can't access that content. Same with Instagram. If a media organization wants to put visual content out on Instagram, you have to have an Instagram account to access that. And to me, that is just that's a ceding of control over something that we should own, and we now have this very, very easy option to own that. But the challenge is getting people into those spaces so that they still have that social media experience in the new space.
How many people are making this shift to the Fediverse? I know you said there's about 5 or 6 people on your server right now, but generally, how popular is this experience?
around the world, I'd say it's definitely growing in popularity. I think there's a big spike in interest around 2022, but I think a lot of people didn't quite figure out what it was that was special about the Fediverse at that time. They went on expecting a sort of facsimile of their experience on normal social media, and it's not really that. You don't get the same quantity of engagement because you're not having content fed to you all the time. But what you do get is a much higher quality of interaction when you do get engagement with other people. But some good examples would be a server called Club in Quebec, which is, I think they have well over 10,000 users now. There's Co-Social, which I think is based in Ontario. This is where people are going to be up in arms with, or I don't know where these organizations are, but
Great instances. I like this radio interview is like amazing. It's really, really good. I think it's one of the best like interviews about the Fediverse that I've ever heard.
Wow, that is high praise. And it's not just because the instances mentioned happen to be.
No, it's just like Jeremy's so like well articulate, and everything he says like makes sense. And it's a lot of the time when you hear people talk about the Fediverse or alternative like social media on the radio or on the internet, there's always kind of they're trying to push their product or whatever. Like I remember we had our own kind of little on the radio, somebody talking about some alternative like social media that somebody was trying to start in Quebec. And it's just, they talk about their thing because they're trying to sell it. But Jeremy is not really, he's just like, it's very pure in what he's saying. There's no like alternative motives behind it. It's really just like, you can feel that he really believes in this thing that's like important to him.
Yeah, like it's cool. Like when I started, working on this stuff and told Jeremy about it, he just kind of got it, which is interesting because he isn't tech savvy at all. He really isn't. Like it was always like being friends with him, the thing we would joke about, like Jeremy would kind of be like, is this a computer page? Is this a computer? Like sort of stupid.
He's explaining the Fediverse so well, yet he's probably like the least tech literate person that you would know.
What would he be? I think he's the least tech literate person I know running a Mastodon instance. That's for sure. I think that might be some of it is that he's getting at the actual what's relevant to a regular person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so it's refreshing to hear because we often talk to people who are like really, really angry at their ideology of how the internet should work being kind of, stomped on or something. And Jeremy's got more kind of like a strong position. Like he does believe in that, but he's more interested in like the deliverables and the hope. And he's not sugarcoating it too. Like,
yeah,
he's not saying like, oh, my instance is growing so fast and, this is the way of the future and stuff. It's just like a kind of, no, this is what we're working on. And
it's very down to earth.
All right. Let's continue the best interview on the Fediverse that Victor's ever heard.
So these sort of co-op-owned social media organizations springing up all over the country and all around the world. And Mastodon itself is a non-profit that's based in Berlin. I think, it's a very big community, and we have a lot of Canadian programmers who are producing things. So there's an app called PixelFed, which is a federated alternative to Instagram. It's very nice and easy to use, and that's made by a Canadian. Some of the inventors of the Fediverse actually, or the technology that enables the Fediverse are based in Canada. So yeah, maybe that's my CBC sign-off, is it's your sort of patriotic duty to explore these things in the face of oppression from American social media sites, something like that.
How owning your own server or moderating your own server, I can imagine could be a little overwhelming. How do you stop it from kind of devolving into what we're seeing on social media now, which tends to be quite divisive?
Well, it's as difficult as it is large, if that makes sense. So the more people you have on your server, the more challenging it becomes to moderate it actively. And with nwt.social, I've set it so that if you go onto Mastodon and you try and create an account on nwt.social, I get a little message that says, do you want to let this person on? And I choose whether you get on or not. So we control how many users come on in the first place. So we're able to sort of limit access to bots and things like that would kind of make it harder to look after the content on there. But I think you can also set it up very clearly. So you make your moderation rules. Firstly, you make them democratically. You have your members who are on the server decide what your rules are for moderation, what constitutes, censurable behavior or bannable behavior. And then the larger your server gets, I guess there's more work involved in coordinating volunteers to do things like moderation and what have you. But I mean, we have great models to follow. Like Wikipedia works in this way, right? Like Wikipedia relies on volunteer moderators, and it's still an extremely effective source of information. And I expect that you would experience a similar thing with setting up a community server here, where there would be people who get invested in this technology, this experience, and they care about it. So they want to try and make it a good and sustainable. We're all very accustomed to volunteering. There's a lot of volunteer activity in northern communities. So that aspect of running a community server shouldn't be a challenge for anybody up here.
What does NWT Social need to succeed?
I don't know. That's an interesting framing. I hadn't really thought of that. In a sense, it's succeeding already because there's sort of me and my friends on there. We get to talk to each other and get to enjoy the rest of the Fediverse at the same time. But I think success for me would look like a wider uptake of this technology in general across the North, whether it's people subscribing to nwt.social or not, or making their own systems. I can still talk to them, so I will get that social media experience if more people are on there using it and posting interesting stuff. I don't know. It's a good question. I think it's really that. It's adoption of these tools. That's what I'm hoping to see, because these things we're going to need this technology over the coming years to kind of preserve civil society on the internet. I think we need these resilient systems that are, nobody can buy the technology that underpins the Fediverse. It's all open source, and I think that's we're going to see the value of that more and more and more as social media becomes more openly kind of partisan.
All right, Jeremy, we're going to have to leave it there, but I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming in.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
That was Jeremy Flatt. He joins me in studio this morning.
I think it's interesting because when the CBC guy, he kind of asked me a similar question of like, what do you see kind of the Fediverse winning? Like, what's winning for you? And I think that's a very kind of old way of thinking about it, because what Jeremy said is it's right. Like, there's not really winning. Like, he's already winning because he has his platform and he has his friends on it, and like, you don't need more than that.
People are like, I don't know. I think people might just switch over to vapes from smoking cigarettes. And you're like, or just not those things, not a very addictive experience. Like, I don't actually want social media to be 3 hours of my day. I want it to be like half an hour, and I have achieved that. And so I'm now happy, and that's it.
Yeah.
I can keep using the Fediverse even if it doesn't become the dominant way that people communicate forever, because this is the level of social media that I want.
It's like you're winning because it works for people. Like, it's not about capturing everybody in the world. It's a very kind of personal experience.
And I mean, Jeremy, this interview was a little while ago, and he's 3 hours ago, he's posting on his Mastodon server, So I guess that's kind of part 3 of Jeremy's mission to get the city of Yellowknife to use federated social media. I'm sure we'll talk to him again at some point on the show to get the other side of it.
Yeah, I think like Jeremy is going to be, it's probably going to be like the unexpected hero of the Fediverse at some point.
He's very much all over kind of like advocating for things,
But I feel like he's going to be like really important at some point, and like, nobody's going to have seen it coming. Like, just some guy trying to make his like Mason instances in the Northwest Territories, and he ends up being like the guy that everybody references as the kind of like guy that made the Fediverse famous.
Really? Okay.
It's like, that's my headcanon about Jeremy.
Okay.
I think Jeremy is going to be like the Fediverse's Jordan Peterson. Like, he's going to...
It's a real backhanded compliment.
No, because Jordan Peterson, like, he became famous just because of some one YouTube video that he was filming interacting. Like, he wasn't famous. It was just like some professor. But then people really resonated with what he said. And then he kind of got invited and stuff. And he kind of seized the opportunity to kind of keep broadcasting his message. But I think, that one's a better one. In Veep, the show Veep,
Richard Splett.
Jeremy is Richard.
Mayor Splett, what happened?
Well, a crop duster clipped the power line and bumped into a local 7-Eleven. We're working with FEMA to bring in emergency supplies of cigarettes.
Just this like well-meaning guy who comes along and everyone's like,
he's just doing his thing, and then people just keep going like, this guy's amazing, and then he keeps like getting promoted.
Richard Splett and the First Lady, Annette Splett, somber but elegant, basking in the glow of a landslide re-election.
you missed him this year, but he was down for Canadian Civil. You're going to have to make sure you don't miss him this time.
Because he's going to be like the biggest thing in the Fediverse.
We have had him on the show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, with you.
I think so once, yeah.
To me, Victor, it sounds like you want to get Jeremy back on the show.
Yeah.
And get some of that glory.
Yeah.
Fediverse fame.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, with all those things, with that follow-up lined up, I think it's time to sign off.
Sign up for Fediverse and sign off from the podcast.
If you're looking to get your instance of whatever hosted, like a Jeremy Flatt, the future Jordan Peterson of the Fediverse. Oh, poor Jeremy. I'm sure he won't like hearing that.
But then I did say he's also like Richard Splett.
Thank you all so much for coming.
Oh my God, I got it. I think I got it.
I think I see what happened there.
Richard, you good boy.
I went to turn it on, but it was already on, so I turned it off. Then I went to turn it off, but it already was off, so I turned it on.
Thanks for watching or listening on PeerTube and the delayed version on YouTube. You should jump over onto PeerTube if you want the early version. You can subscribe and listen in podcast apps as well if you prefer hearing Victor through your ears. Comment away if you are thinking of starting up a social media co-op or heading up your town. Or if you have any questions for Jeremy about how his experience has been with nwt.social so far. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you out there on the Fediverse.